In this video, we'll be populating these values from a jQuery array into this HTML page as those radio options with their associative labels. So at the moment, we've actually hard-coded these values in our HTML page that we would like to be generated from the jQuery. So this HTML file is also linked to our external jQuery file, which is pretty much empty, nothing is in there. And what we want to do is generate all of these radio buttons with those labels using jQuery. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy one of these and put them into here. So we'll take these off at this point. So that's what we have. That's all what we've got. I don't want to save and refresh yet because I need to see these options as I create the array, and then I'll save, but I won't refresh yet. So let's have a look at what we can do here. So initially, the first thing we want to do is we want to wait for the entire HTML page to load before we can execute any query. Next, what we want to do is we want to create an array of objects, and for each object we have an array of strings. Let's put that in a comment like this. So basically what we want is create an array of objects. We'll call that questions, because what we want to do is in this array we want to create for each object, which is for each question, we'll have an array of strings, and these strings would be our options. So to start off, or to declare the array, that's what it looks like. It's a square bracket, and then we want to create an array of objects. So we indicate that we are creating an array of objects using the curly braces. So I actually I've got 3 questions, so that's 3 objects. Not aligned very nicely. Maybe if yeah, okay. Now all of these are actually sort of indented like this. All right, so that's what we have. Okay, so that's an array of objects. So this is question 1, this is question 2, and this is question 3. Now for question 1, we would like to create an array of strings, and we'll give this the name options, because that's what we want, is we want to create the different options that we have in our the options for each question. So the first one was car, and this is the reason why I still haven't refreshed this page, is because I need to see the options. Next one was walk. So what we want to do is do something similar to what we had here for the values. So it's walk. We wouldn't say, oh, that's the thing, is walking. Yeah, probably I'll put that as walking. It makes more sense. Yeah, walk is okay. Let's leave it as walk. Okay, and then plane, not place, plane, sorry, plane, and bus and tram. Okay, so that's our first options. Now the second, that's way too indented. The second would be orange, red, green, yellow, and purple. And our third one, let's paste it like that, would be Monday. Notice I'm not putting capital letters. I'll show you maybe in the next video how to capitalize our first letters for display purposes. Sunday, Friday, and the last option would be Tuesday. Okay, so right now we can refresh this page. So here's what it looked like. These questions are populated from our JavaScript file, which was discussed in the last JavaScript series, the last couple of ones. Okay, so let's move on we've done this part. Number one, we've created an array of objects. Each object pretty much holds our question object, and for each question object we've got a list of options, an array of options basically, and for each object that has an array of string. So I believe we've finished this part. Let's move on to the second part. I'll copy this comment, and so we can work with that comment. Now what we want to do is we basically want to loop through each element in our let me just put my words into context. So what we want to do is we want to loop through using the each function. We want to loop through our questions array and pass and execute a function, passing to that function the index. So this would be index 0, this would be index 1, and this would be index 2. In addition to the index, we'd actually be passing in the question object, of which, so we can refer to this as question 0, question object sitting at index 1, question object sitting at index 2. And so let's close off our function and close off our each function. So this one would be a close to this function, and this bracket closes off our each function call. So what we're basically saying is for each question, execute this function, loop through the array of question, executing this function, passing in the two arguments as index and the question itself, the object. And so that's looping through each question object. So now we refer to this object as question. Next, what we want to do is we want to create a variable that will store a jQuery object with this selected HTML element. So we want to select this element basically, and then put it into a jQuery object basically with the corresponding ID. All right. So to do that, we'll put that into a variable called const. We'll call our constant or the variable question element. So it'd basically be a jQuery object, and that's indicated with the $. And now what we want to do is we want to select the HTML element that's got this ID. So Q1, Q2, Q3. Now we notice that all of these IDs start off with the same letter, which is Q. So that's the unique thing. But the second value, which is 1, 2, 3, is the changing value. So we will use string interpolation for that one. So that's the beginning of our string interpolation and the end. So what we'll basically say here is that the letter Q is fixed, that's not going to change, but then what comes after the $sign is the changing value, and between curly braces would be the index. Now we know index of the array starts with 0, so that's index 0, that's index 1, and that's 2. So if we add 1 to the index, it'll give us this value, 1, 2, 3. So plus 1, as we discussed in string interpolation video in JavaScript, it's pretty much the same with just a slight different with the syntax. Let's just save and refresh. Nothing happens yet, but at least we haven't got any errors. That means we've closed off everything correctly. So that's a good sign. Okay, next what we want to do is go to number 3, 4, and 5. Let's do 3 first. I'll copy all of these actually like that, so we can put it in as a comment, a jQuery comment. All right, let's do all of them right here. Now what we want to do is we want to loop through each option, each options array of strings, I guess. Okay, so again, we'll have another call to the each function. And at this point, we are accessing this array dot, this value. So we are in a loop. This object, and to access the options array, we'll just use the dot options. Okay, the dot options, and then we pass or we execute a function. Now we would like to have the index of each element in the options array. So we would like something similar to what we've got here, except that we need to give these different names. So we can just say, so I'll say maybe option index would be a good name, option index, and option value. We'll start off our function, we'll close it off before we forget to do that. Let's save and refresh, make sure that we haven't made a mistake with anything. So it looks okay so far. So at this point we are looping through, but we haven't done anything. We haven't done 4 and 5. So I might want to take these two comments and paste them in here with correct indentation. All right, okay. So what we want to do is we want to construct that HTML element as a string. Let's actually do the appending at the end. Yeah, like this. So let's put that into a variable called something similar to that. So instead of question, we'll call it option element. Option element, and what we want to do is construct a string, and we're going to use string interpolation for that. Okay, and I'll just close it off like this. And we want to build something like that as a string that we will then append that HTML element to our form. So what we do is we will do this step actually right now. We'll say append that option element like this. So we've done, option element, I didn't realize I was deleting. Okay. Oh, that's interesting. So we've actually done number 5. We have just not done number 4. So let's do that. But I left this to the last part because I want to show you how we will do something similar. We want to put this into a string, which would be this value. Construct a HTML element as a string, and we've stored that into our HTML element, which we've then appended to our question element, which is an element that's part of the form. Okay, so let's construct our elements. So here would be our HTML, I'll probably take that one. So inputs, actually any of these, I'll just refer to one of them because we'll have the values changing, right? So I'll copy all of this and paste it in here, and I'll show you what we need to change. So input type is equal to radio, that part remains the same. Name is equal to question. We don't have a hard code for question 1. So here, because this is within a string interpolation, which is the that key is called the backtick, is sitting under the escape key on your keyboard. So here we indicate that we would like this value to dynamically change. So that value would be within curly braces, index +1. It's coming from index +1 because this is related to the question. Then the value over here would be this value. So at this point it's coming, say, from car or walk or whatever we are in. So that point, sorry, I kind of lost myself. That value would be the option value. Oh, no, I need to copy this part. So, yeah, and again, this would need to go in the $sign, and this would be dynamically changing depending on whatever's sitting in option value. And the ID is not a fixed value anymore like this. It will dynamically change with whatever. So the ID is pretty much the same as the value, as we can see in all of these. So the ID is similar to the value. So we can just say option value for both parts. Okay, so that goes for our import. I'll just cut this off and make sure I haven't got any issues. Okay, so I've pretty much got the radio buttons generated, but I haven't got my labels, so let's do that. So for the label, I'll also again copy the whole label like this and put it in. I don't know what I've put in there, so let's just put it in like this. And so for the label, right, so yeah, label 4, that value will change. Again, it will be the options value. Label 4, that would be also dynamically changing. And then let's delete that. So whatever goes in here would also be the option value. So this part, that's option value. And we close off the label, and I think I need that break. Yeah, I need that break. Let's paste it. Let's save and refresh. Okay, so we kind of got our options. It looks okay, but it doesn't look the best. So we might want to probably add a new line to sort of separate that button from the question. So let's do that somewhere. Somewhere here. Add a new line after the question. Yeah. So here what we do is we will use the question element. We will use the HTML function to, so this is basically what we're saying here is we want to access the HTML elements, the content, and set a new value to it. And so that new value would pretty much be whatever is in there. So this would be an accessor method, the getter. But in this case here, we are setting a new value. And then that new value would be, sorry, I accidentally deleted the whole thing. That new value would be whatever's sitting there plus a break. So that goes just a break element, a HTML element like this. We close off. So I've got a get call to get the value that's sitting there, plus we concatenate a break to it, and we set this whole value as a new value to our question element. All right, so now we have a new line there. There's only one thing, and then we've also got the label, so you can see that as soon as I click anywhere, not necessarily on the dot on the radio option itself, and that's also being generated for us here. There is one more thing that we want to do, is we want to capitalize the first letter of each of these options because it doesn't look that good. And that we will do in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned.